Joining us this week for bonus conversations on the coast is the executive director of Illiteracy Works. His name is Paul Heavenridge, and Literacy Works is something, a word or a phrase that you should have heard if you've been listening to the program, because each week it says in the lead-up to the show that Conversations on the Coast is brought to you by Literacy Works. And we thought it was time to take time out, as it were, and talk to an expert on and find out what Literacy Works does. What does it do in general, Paul?
Well, thanks for having me, Jim. Literacy Works is an educational nonprofit organization, and we were created for the purpose of increasing literacy, technology, and basic skills for underprivileged and unrepresentative adults, families, and children, and the families is a very important part of that.
Yeah, because the families include the adults.
That's correct.
The parents or the caregivers, whatever the case may be. Now, on your website, which is illiteracyworks.org, one can find a guest column written by one Juanita Stanley, executive director of the California Literacy Incorporated in Pasadena. And the title of her piece is "The Kiddies Are Getting All the Literacy Dollars!" And she starts out by saying, "I'm very tired of adorable kiddies getting all the press, all the attention, all the warm fuzzies, and yes, all the dollars to eradicate illiteracy." She says it is appropriate to spend large amounts of time and resources to make sure that kids learn to read, but what about all those parents out there who have difficulty reading? People with low reading skills are raising kids, and many times continuing the cycle of illiteracy with poor pre-reading skills, hereditary learning disabilities, and poor homework support. The issue of adult illiteracy is here today, and it's growing. And then she adds something very poignant. Remember, kids don't cry when they learn to read. Adults do. Is she accurate still? This is an article written way back in 2000.
Even more so today, Jim. America really is in crisis, and it's an education crisis. It's a literacy crisis. And one thing we forget is that parents are our children's first teachers. Mm-hmm. It's really important to have parents that read to their kids, and this is a kid that doesn't have a literate parent who's reading to them is at a disadvantage as they go into regular public schools.
I see. So you would say that what she's talking about is still the picture today. Is there any way to put a number on the number of parents who are illiterate?
Well, let me throw out some statistics, which I know is real exciting.
Okay.
Listening. But about 60% of Americans read at a seventh grade or below level.
Oh, my God.
And that's quite a few people.
That's bad for my program.
That it certainly is. And about 23% of the adult population in America, which is about 44 million people, read at the very lowest levels of literacy. And that means, to put that in common terms, is they read a little, but not well enough to fill out, say, an application or read a food label or read a simple story to a child.
I see. Now, the business of helping people who are not children get out of illiteracy seems to present special pedagogical challenges. Is that true?
Well, it really is, because adults learn differently than children. Primarily, they need a reason to learn, and they do real well in being self-directed in learning. So a child will learn anything. They're like sponges. And adults, though, because of their experience, they probably have had a bad experience in school. And a lot of it is they don't know how to learn, and that has to do with learning styles. Everyone learns differently. Some are audio learners, some are visual learners, some are kinesthetic tactile. They use their hands learn best. And that's why a lot of what we do is technologically based and web-based, because you can take the information to be learned and put it on a website, and you can access it the way you learn best. So we can have an audio track or a video track. We can have you're clicking on things on a website. So
I see.
the kind of aesthetic. So it's a great way for adults to learn.
But isn't one of the problems that when a person has not been able to read for a long time, they find ways to fake their way through certain situations?
That is correct, and it's amazing how many people survive in today's society by finding other methods of doing things other than being able to read a label, for example, on a can.
Well, listen, maybe next week we can look at some of that when you return at a time when I want you to talk about some of the things Literacy Works is doing to meet the special pedagogical challenges of educating adults.
That sounds great.
Okay.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at JimFosterCoc or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
Joining us for this week's bonus Conversations on the Coast, the Executive Director of Literacy Works, Paul Heavenridge. And Paul, we were the other day preparing for this interview, and we were using the crisis of adult illiteracy. And you said one of the ways to see the crisis is to talk about the funding that's being done. Could you share that factotum with us?
Yes. Well, we have a real crisis in this nation, and it includes the funding of adult education and literacy programs. I can give you one quick example. One program that we all hear a lot about in the news is No Child Left Behind.
Oh, don't we?
And this year the funding for that is $23.7 billion. This is federal dollars. $23.7 billion. And for all of vocational adult education, this is again federal dollars spent, is only $1.6 billion. So here's one program, No Child Left Behind, an incredible amount of money being spent on that, and very little on vocational adult education, which also includes workforce development.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have a workforce that's increasingly not being able to be trained, and we're losing ground on the international market. We're not being internationally competitive because of that.
Wow.
We're actually having to bring people into the country that has certain skills that we don't have.
Well, one of the organizations that's fighting against that tide is Conversations on the Coast Partner in Crime, so to speak, Literacy Works. And they can be found at their website, literacyworks.org. You can find out many things about them and how to support them. And I want to spend a little time talking about some of the things you do in this organization to fight this problem. And one of the things is you have a lot of learning resources. One of them is a partnership that you've developed with CNN's San Francisco Bureau, and that's a partnership that's expanding. Tell me about that.
That's correct. What we do is we take broadcast news stories of CNN. We're also working with CBS 5, which is the San Francisco CBS affiliate, using their broadcast stories. We put those up as streaming video, the whole broadcast story, and we have the full text of the story on the site. And then we have various activities like a vocabulary section that's about that particular story. And so the adult can go in there to increase their literacy skills, vocabulary skills. And it's very popular. We have about 400 countries from around the world come into the site. It's one of our largest hit sites. About 75,000 people come in every month.
CBS 5, incidentally, is a sister station to the station you're listening to now. Another thing that Literacy Works does is something which I find absolutely fascinating. You have a partnership with the Fannie Mae Foundation. And that sounds kind of strange at first, but come on, one of the most important things for an adult is home ownership. And isn't that what this partnership's all about?
That's correct, and it's a great way. We talked a little bit about why adults learn and what motivates them, and of course, money is a great motivator. And buying your own home is a great motivator.
It sure is.
What Fannie Mae has developed with other adult educators are two manuals: how to buy your own home, and and how to buy a home in the United States. One is for English as a second language individual, and the other is for an adult basic education person. So so no matter what your literacy level is, these manuals, and they're interactive on our website, can help a person acquire the skills to eventually buy their house, and also increase their literacy skills and their critical thinking skills and their financial literacy skills at the same time.
So what you're doing is taking something that everybody should have or has to have in order to buy a house and kind of tailor-making it for people of poor skills.
That's correct. And it also increases their employability skills as you become more literate, as you acquire some of these literacy skills. You can get a better job. If you get a better job, it usually is a higher payer job.
Yeah.
So a high-paying job will help you acquire that house eventually.
It's pretty amazing. And it seems to me that you people are really onto something, understanding that there's a tremendous need here, and that need is very, very specific, and you have to come up with unique solutions.
That's correct. Again, it's mostly motivation. A lot of people want to better themselves, and we have to understand that this is a system now in the United States. Our society is based on lifelong learning. There's so many new things happening, and if you can't read at a basic level, and again, you need to be reading at a 12th grade level, not a 7th grade level.
Paul, I've got to stop you there. We've been talking to Paul Heavenridge, the Executive Director of Literacy Works, a fantastic, important organization, and you can learn all about them at literacyworks.org. And thank you very much for being with us, Paul.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC, or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.